In the hole.
Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning, Shayna. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Had a family member die recently, actually yesterday, and he'd been sick for a while, so it wasn't like a sudden surprise death. And no, it wasn't from COVID.
Yeah. Let's
But
clear that up right now.
yeah, let's just be clear. And
Yeah.
he got to die in his home, and it was really beautiful to like kind of witness this process. So we've shifted our topic for today to talk about death and purpose and beginnings, and you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of philosophy that goes into it, in my opinion, about death.
Right. And death comes as a part of life.
Mhm.
That is, and whether it's a plant and it's completely dead, there is no hope of it coming back, or it's dead for a season. Everything has a time and a purpose and a season. And for the beating heart, there will come a time where it does not anymore, and it is finished.
Yeah, I say
Yeah.
callously, you born, you live, you die, and I say
Mm.
that like I said, callously, but I also like there's so much behind that. Like, not everybody that is born lives, and not everybody that dies lives either. So is
Right.
it that you're just born and die? I make the intentional choice to live my life. And something, I have some tattoos that like older generations are like, oh my God, don't you regret that? And I was like, no, I respect my decision as a young person and my choices I made. I don't have regrets. Do I wish that, maybe I shouldn't have put my foot in my mouth at that time? Sure. I think we all can relate to that at least at one time
Right.
or another.
Like,
Uh-huh.
unsend.
And I feel like death is where sometimes, we have different, like divergent philosophies, divergent views. It's like the end, the
Right.
end of everything. And it's the end of this physical body that keeps us constrained, in my opinion.
Sure.
And it's
Sure.
beautiful and sad. And to get to witness my husband's family come together and be as supportive and respectful and just quiet and like with each other in a somber, solemn, supportive way is impressive. And I was
Right.
sharing with them, I was like, you guys are a gem of a family, and to get to be part of this and respect and have the conversations about death, because he was sick, he knew he was sick, they had conversations. Okay, what are we going to do about this? Here's my
Mhm.
will, this is what I want, I don't want to have to be in a hospital and die. Like, he made those very clear before he was too
Yes.
sick to have those conversations.
Yes. Directives are so important. Um, I've seen both my husband and I, we volunteer with the hospice organization here. And, one of the most critical things of their philosophy and their mission is that nobody dies alone. And knowing that, there's volunteers that will come in if family, and especially now, um, where if family members are not allowed in for fill in the blank reason. I mean, it doesn't even just happen right now, but
Right.
there's a number of circumstances that can come up with family not being able to be there, but that nobody passes alone.
Yeah.
Nobody is alone when they come into this world,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just the mama there. The baby has the mama,
Mm-hmm.
and as nobody should leave this world alone. And I just think that that's beautiful, because it can be scary. And um, even knowing that, even if you're healthy and you're living out that dash that is before the birth year and the death year, what you do with that dash time, um, having somebody to share that with and to document, not to make a light too light of a note of it, but Gilligan's Island, the actress that just passed away that played Marianne, right? Yeah, Marianne. Um, you know, you don't hear about people's lives a lot of times until they are no longer with us.
Right.
And so having that, what did they do? What did they fill that time with? And celebrating that time and all that they accomplished and what their purpose was about. And and I think part of our jobs is helping people find their purpose and have the ability to then live out that purpose in whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's one of the things being a doc that I love getting to help people get well so they can live their purpose. Like I'm getting to do what I love every day and get paid for it. And I love that so much.
Yeah.
And to hear that, you've been sick for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and that's the majority of your life has been spent in and out of hospitals and in and out of doctor's visits. Um, Not really sure. Oh my gosh, now I'm on like 10 medications. And it's like, maybe that's your purpose. Maybe in there, like you're sitting next to someone who's getting an infusion of some really crazy medication and, they get well, but they got well because they listened to your stories before you got sick and what you were doing with your life. And there was a friend who once told me when I was having a really hard time, that if you have inspired one person in your life, that your life has been worth living. One person, one
Mhm.
life, one person. That's it.
Mhm.
And I bet you anybody that's listening, watching, you've inspired at least one person to do better, do good, create art, create music, whether it's, breakup song or whatever. You've inspired one person. That's
Mhm.
a life worth living, in my opinion. That's the dash. Is it
Right.
extraordinary and extravagant? Arguably, that's subjective.
Mhm. To each their own.
Each their own,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Yeah.
I know the thought of, It's a Wonderful Life and how um Clarence was telling George Bailey that each person's life touches so many others' lives. And there's a big, so we're ending 2020 and we're moving into 2021. It's just a calendar turn. It's just, adding a one instead of a zero when you're writing your check. Um, Although I've learned not many people write checks anymore.
I write checks a lot where I live, by the way.
Yeah. Um, but there's a transition involved, and there's a difference between motivation and inspiration, and people have different outlooks on it. And I think of motivation as an outside influence, but an inspiration comes from inside. And
Right.
you are inspired, no, I said that backwards. You you are inspired by the actions of somebody else or something that you've seen, and then you are motivated to go and put that into action, which then causes an inspirational act on somebody else. And so it's a ebb and flow of life, of going from what you see, what that says to you internally, and then what you do with it going outwards. So I've seen a number. We've talked about food banks and things, and what is available for a lower income to receive as their food substance, and then how wretched that whole situation is, which has led me to want to open a clean food bank
Yeah.
where those preservative filled products are not what we're offering. Um, and then I've met people that have done that in the South, and so now I have a
Cool.
connection to then move purpose forward and and do that here. And it's
Mhm.
just one of the things I want to do with my dash.
Mhm. Absolutely. There's in these times I tend when things are emotionally hard for me. I'm a self-diagnosed workaholic, and so I usually work to kind of
Work
cover up
through
my
it.
emotions. And I've learned that reading poetry really helps me process things, because like I may not always have the right way of like expressing how I'm feeling, but man, poets sure know how to. And Rilke wrote a poem. I couldn't find my book, so I was looking online. Tore my bookcases apart. I was like, "Where's my poetry book?" Book of Hours, Love Poems to God, and it actually relates to what you were saying, Carolyn, in that like the ripple effect, basically, of like the one person, and then they go out and one person, and like before you know it, you're talking to someone that has a similar dream and purpose to you, and you guys can work together.
Right.
So I live my life in widening circle that reach out across the world. I may not ever complete the last one, but I give myself to it. I circle around God, that primordial tower. I have been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know, am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? And I know there's believers and non-believers in God, and I grew up Christian, and I don't identify as being a Christian, but I do believe in God, universe, the creator, creatrix, the great spirit, whatever you feel comfortable calling it. I'm on the same page. It means the same thing in my mind. And it's just, to me, with the end of a physical life, that's not the end. It's like going home. It's like the gift for living our dash, the gift for being in the human condition, existing as a human, what that's like, how difficult it is. And it's yeah, have you lived within yourself with what values are important to you, how you want to live, not how someone told you you should live.
Right. Yeah, and as it is the end of 2020, with death, being a gift to end suffering, to end not even just your own physical suffering if you've been dealing with something, but the relief um, of the suffering for your family and loved ones that either have maybe been doing a physical caring for you, but the emotional toll that release alone, um the expectation of knowing that the end is coming, and when is that phone call going to happen?
Yeah.
Every time the phone rings, that anxiety of, or something has happened, that when you look back, we have the gift of 2020 vision now. It's over, so we can see, and in my world we have a plan, do, and review. And it's a constant ongoing, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And so you have a plan. And so if this was December 31st, 2019, if you can think back, oh, okay, so what did I have in store for me in 2020? If we were, 365 days, that's all, is really not a lot of time.
It's really not.
And I think back, I'm like, man, that year actually did zip on by, as they seem to go faster and faster. But, you know, like I don't even know. I know my word. I claim a word for the year. And on this day, a year ago, I claimed the word impact for 2020. Is I wanted to make an impact on people's lives. My life had been changed in a certain way, and I wanted to then bring that into other people's lives. I had no idea how, the how doesn't matter. Just set the aim. And so we've had this great revelation now with 2020 um, in seeing our eyes being opened to so many things that weren't even on the radar in 2019. And so now moving forward into 2021, I'm ready for a revival. I'm ready to bring things to life, and let's go. So it's a blessing, um, that I don't think we can actually really fully grasp and comprehend without loss, and
Right.
without the coming to a close and coming to an end of fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can say, okay, this chapter is done. We turn the page and we go on to the next.
It's true. And there's the old cliche, when one door closes, another door opens, or multiple doors open. It's just the perspective in which you take looking at a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Are you going to pivot
exactly, which
and
is what
say,
it's been this year for me.
be
Pivot,
there?
pivot, pivot,
Yes.
pivot.
Uh-huh.
We don't know. We make plans shift. I mean, I feel like my 2020 year started off with a mentor dying, actually. I was literally 13 days away from flying to go see him in December of 2019. And I was so excited to go work with him. I was going to spend a whole week over on the East Coast studying with him. Old school naturopathic doctor, um, had big ideas, big opinions, and, but also his patients got well, which is super important to me. And so that kind of, okay, we're resting. So I took that as a message of like, okay, it's not time to go travel across the country. It's time to rest. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of course, 2020 happened, as we all are acutely aware, unless we've been living under a rock somewhere. And it's just been a year of pivoting. Like, wedding plans changed for my husband and I. We ended up not buying a place like we thought we were going to. We ended up having to put our old man dog down. Most of my practice is telemedicine, which I was definitely not expecting. I was expecting to have an office, brick and mortar, which I ended up saying no to. No. And that's like a big deal for me, because I have this tendency in myself to be like a people pleaser. And so saying no is a big deal. I mean, anybody that knows me knows I'm opinionated and I have things to say, but I generally will have my opinion that like assuages the most people, if I said that word correctly, makes everybody feel most comfortable,
Uh-huh.
biggest bang for your buck. And I've learned that this year, in my word has been no. No is respectful. No is love. No is
Boundaries.
boundaries. No is self-care. No is a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And I feel like at a young age, like little kids, like that's one of their favorite words, right around 2, like no, 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 no. And you're just like, oh my God, pulling my hair out. Like, can you just, yes, put your shoes on. Yes, please.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. That's definitely we have to be tough like a toddler in our nose. And that comes from being self-aware
Yeah.
of what is good for me and what is going to harm me. And knowing I'm putting my clients through a year-end wrap up. Um, and I'm having them write 3 things down in their journal to start with, and it is health goals for the year,
Mm-hmm.
habits that you want to stop doing, and what are your non-negotiables.
Mm.
And I feel as a holistic health coach, I need to know what those are up front, because if I don't even know what an example would be. If your Friday nights of going to a particular establishment and eating a particular thing and drinking a particular thing is just your thing that you're going to do, and you are not willing to change that, I need to know that so that we can make adjustments and put that into your plan of care,
Right.
because that is important to you for whatever reason. It's not up to me to say, well, you're screwing yourself by doing that. And every Sunday morning, we're going to have to start over again.
Right. Yeah. The
But there's a
non-negotiable
reason for that.
is a
So I
huge
need to know what your non negotiables are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what we've talked about before is the 80-20. It's like some things are just not worth giving up because they feed your soul. And in my profession, we talk about body, mind, and soul. And I actually don't know that many of my colleagues that talk about the soul, the spirit aspect of things.
Right.
And
Right.
sometimes maybe that Sunday dinner or Friday night dinner at that establishment, and you get your beer and your steak or whatever it is, and you get to hang out with your buddies. That's awesome. I'm glad that you have a way to connect socially with your friends in a way that's safe and you feel like you can be your full self, which we live in a world that we are constantly bombarded with messages to not be yourself.
Yes.
To be this way, you must be this way, should be, shoulda, coulda, woulda, no.
Right. Yeah. If you ever start to wonder how good of a parent you are, or that you think that your family is just falling apart, I go on to whatever it is, TBS or whatever, and I watch old reruns of Roseanne, because that will instantly just make me feel better about my whole everything. But it's one thing that they would do is go bowling.
Yeah.
You go bowling, you meet up with some friends, you knock back a few beers and you're having French fries and whatever it is, all that you do there. I don't know. I haven't been bowling in a very long time,
I
but
like cigarette smoke, but yes.
yeah, um, but it's a sense of community. And that's, if one thing that is, like you had said, death can bring a family in, and it's a community, and then you add in family, friends, um, and your community expands. But that community is so important to self-care as well, and knowing again what those boundaries are, and being aware if there's some people that are in your life that you have to say no to, and that's okay too. There's a lot of strength in that.
There really is a lot of strength in saying no. It's, yeah. And the community aspect is just such an important piece. And, I've shared that 2020 has been emotionally challenging for me. I've had to do a lot of pivoting. And I don't view 2020 as a dumpster fire. I think 2020 has been a beautiful year, full of opportunity and growth and lessons around the world for everybody. And yeah, it's been hard. And, you know, what is it, like diamonds in the rough or whatever? Like, I come back to this analogy all the time. And, you know, I was listening to a podcast for one of the business groups I'm in, and he was talking about this tree. And it was an old tree, like a big old 30-year-old tree. I mean, not too old, but a big tree. And it's lived through 30 summers and 30 winters. And you can think of summer analogous to like growth and prosperity and abundance, and winter being the time of more like introspection and reflection and like hard lessons to be learned from. And you need both in
Yes.
order to grow. Growth is learning from the mistakes, failing forward, and not giving up. That's that tree that's been growing in that old growth forest for 300 years. That tree has not given up. And imagine the winters and the storms and the thunder and lightning and the fires, and it's still standing tall and beautiful. And wow, the presence that trees like that hold. And I feel like humans have this ability too. And this was true with my grandpa-in-law. I actually never met any of my grandpas, my blood grandpas, so it's been kind of cool to get to spend more time with someone that is, kind of in that grandfather figure. And I mean, he stood in his power and inspiration, and even as sick as he was on chemo, skied 50 days last season. Yes,
Oh, wow.
50 days on chemo. And
Oh,
he
50 days on chemo. Wow.
he was living his life to the absolute fullest, doing what he loved. And you might think, oh my God, haying, like, how could that be enjoyable? But for some people, to each their own. And, you get to feed livestock for the winter. You get to put food away for the winter. You get to support your community. You get to support your family doing this. And best of all, your office is the great wide open. And it's beautiful. Right. Sometimes it was a little hot this summer, let's be honest. But, that didn't stop him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tractor's air conditioner now.
and that story, unfortunately, cancer is still one of the top killers.
Yeah.
And that story, so every day we know that there's a new diagnosis going out. We have a family friend that just got a diagnosis of it week before Christmas. Oh. And it happens every day, but that story is going to help somebody.
Yeah.
To know that I love skiing. I'm going to be on chemo. I'm not going to get to ski. Oh no, I know somebody who went skiing 50 days while on chemo.
And no, maybe he wasn't doing double black diamonds and mogul runs that he prefers. Right. But nonetheless, he was out there skiing corduroy, enjoying his life. A little is better than none. I say a penny, people throw $1 million worth of pennies away a year. And that number might have changed since I last looked at it, but like that adds up. Sure. Little things here and there add up. And, are you making the most of a situation, or are you just frivolous? Oh, it's a penny, throw it away.
Right.
How many times?
I pick up every stinking penny I find.
Me too.
I don't care if it's head up or not.
they do. They add up.
Right.
And occasionally you find a quarter.
Right. Well, and where your mind goes, so will your sight. A
Yeah,
blind person can have great vision.
they sure can. Usually their
So,
other senses are enhanced.
right. And so knowing what, you want that year to look like, helps tremendously. If for instance, my job got shut down in March, and I didn't have any real thought of that there was going to be anything other than go to work every morning and, drop the kids off at school, go to work. They walk to the office after school and we go home. That was just how it was going to be. Um, but now I think, what do I want to change this year?
Right. And maybe it's
And
going to be a lot bigger than you thought because,
yeah,
man,
I
I
know.
didn't think that like my hour commute was going to go away. I didn't think that all of my rest of my education would have been online.
Right.
I didn't think the air travel was going to be suspended. Like before this happened, we were like, no, it's impossible. We cannot cut our carbon emissions in half. And we dropped them way more than half. Like, oh my God, it actually smelled fresh in Seattle in March because nobody was going anywhere. There was no more
Oh, wow.
airplane, no more noise traffic over my house.
Hmm.
That's a huge shift
Hmm.
like that. So
Hmm.
anything is possible. That's what that tells me. The world can get on the same page at the same time. It is
Hmm.
definitely possible, which is
Right.
super cool.
It is, if as long as we learn from it and then move forward. We're in a cancel culture now. That's a new word that we
Yeah.
added to our vocabularies, fortunately or unfortunately. But that's okay, because there's a lot of things that need to be canceled. There's a lot of things that people have been taught, have accepted, have thought to believe as utmost truth, that we have the ability to say, no, that's wrong. Every new study that comes out in fill in the blank subject is a new piece of knowledge, a new piece of information that we can use and become better through.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to adopt. We're going to have to pivot to a new mindset of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of thinking that this box and this way of working and this way of medicine and this way of nutrition and this way of going to work. I mean, think of how many people have learned how to use Zoom now that have never heard of Zoom before.
I know.
and now and now this is the way that the world is turning.
Yeah.
Now, I should have bought stock in Zoom
I
a
know.
year and a half ago.
Seriously. You and me both. Oh, little did we know. Yeah.
Right. But now we know. And so now we're going to use it. And then we move forward,
Yeah.
because there's always going to be something new with the death of something.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And oh snap. What was I thinking about? We were talking about cancel culture. What
Well,
was
you
that though?
think when you were talking about the tree, it reminded me we have some peach trees
Mm-hmm.
here in the yard. And the tree doesn't know that it's going to have a freeze time, that it's going to be pruned, that it's going to have a growth time, and it's going to have blossoms. The things that we run from, bees, are required for its existence and its growth and its reproduction. And every year, you need to, our trees need a little help, but we need to, there's a pruning process
Mm-hmm.
that's to go, that a tree needs to go through for its own good, because you end up with branches all over and then it snaps and breaks and it brings disease to the whole tree and
Yeah.
then you lose the tree.
Mm-hmm.
But
Tending too.
you need it needs to be tended to.
Yeah.
And while we don't see the outward growth during the winter or the fall once the leaves fall off, all of those roots are going down and bringing up nutrients and everything, so that in the next season
Mm-hmm.
it comes up and does it all again.
See, this is hibernation. This is kind of goes back to what we were talking about with sleep. Is like we need more sleep so we can do more healing, more nourishing of our body, so we can go into spring and summer. And I'm not yet a farmer, but that's hopefully, fingers
It's on the
crossed,
list.
soon. It's on the list. So I can work hard and work in the fields and nourish the plants that have nourished me. And I remembered what I was going to say, and it's about science. Science does not equal fact. I want to say that again. Science does not equal fact.
Mhm.
Truth is not science. Science is not truth. Now, what do I mean by that? The most important thing I think I learned in college was actually from my developmental biology teacher, who was a Dartmouth, had a Dartmouth PhD. Super, super smart lady. Also one of like the most girly professors I had, which was great. And in the meantime, we were doing like experimentation on African clawed frogs, and kind of got my first notice into environmental toxicology in her class. But the most important thing I learned was that science today can be 99.9% sure that this theory is correct. And tomorrow we learn something new that blows that theory out. That's
Right.
science. Science is evolving. Science is dynamic. Science is constantly changing. Medicine is in the same category in my brain as science. And I feel like
Mhm.
science, we now have like science-ism, and like,
Is a
well, the science is settled. No, honey, the science is never settled, because then it's a fact and then it's not science. Facts and science are not the same. Just stop myself. They are not the same. Okay. And the sooner that we can get on board as a culture, as a community, as a scientific community, I'm not even talking about like regular lay people, because I feel like it's a nuanced concept, but I also think that like regular people should be able to understand this. It's not that complicated. And
right.
somehow the media has misstrewn what science is. And
Well, and it's not even been misstrewn. It's been
bastardized.
falsely, yeah. Yes. Yes. And trust the science. Uh,
Trust the science,
um,
but who funded?
I don't know that I'm going to.
Yeah.
Just follow the science and follow the research. Okay, today, but now tomorrow it's going to tell me something completely different, because there have been so many fill in the blank repercussions from your facts yesterday that are now false today.
Oh my God. Yeah. And like, I feel like the way we eat, I'm reading a book right now on salt and how this like salt restriction is actually really bad for like most people. And it's a very small handful of people that salt restriction is good for. But
Right.
actually, humans, much like our ungulates, are hooved animals like cows. We always put a salt block out for cows,
Right.
and other animals go and find salt too on the side of the road. Why do
Right.
animals always hang out by the side of the road? One, it's warmer. Two, there's salt there for them to
Mhm.
get. We need
Mhm.
salt to survive.
It's the
Okay, this
fourth
is a new
most
concept.
required mineral in the body.
Required, not optional, not seasoning, not spice.
Electrolytes, your whole electrical system is not going to process without sodium.
Yeah. And
Your
so
heart function, hello.
yes, that's a huge one. That's the
Well,
most common side effect that this author, who is a doctor of pharmacology, who did extensive research in cardiovascular health before starting to write all these books. And he's written quite a few, but this is the first one. I was like, oh my God, salt. I need to learn more, because all I learned was DASH diet. Salt is bad. Stop hypertension. Well, the most common side effect from low salt is actually heart palpitations and arrhythmia, which is
that's the electrical system.
right, the electrical system. So, and then my mind went like, well, what about anxiety? What about depression? What about panic attacks? What about all these things that are like nervous system overload and like exhaustion? Is it because we are depleted in salt? So, and eggs and butter have gotten a bad rep too. And what else? Like our food system is just like wrought with oh, dairy's super good for you. We should eat lots of dairy and lots of dairy and lots of dairy. Oh, and by the way, doctors used to recommend smoking Camel cigarettes, because Camels were like the cool cigarette, right? Like you probably saw those commercials, Carolyn. I fortunately, it was a little
But
after my time, but
I grew up. I basically grew up on it, because that's what my grandpa smoked, was Camel Straights, no filters,
no
Camel
filter.
Straight. You know,
Straight to the point.
and well, and then you mix that that whole salt scenario, because I was brought up in a house who the head of the house, my grandfather, was put on a salt restricted diet. So as he goes, as does the entire family.
Yeah,
What does your thyroid need?
salt, iodine.
Hello, hello. You
Everything.
want to know how many people my age are struggling with thyroid issues because they were brought up in a salt restricted home? And then you don't even have the, so now, okay, sorry, you can of worms, but real quick, the salt restriction. So now you're not building up your hydrochloric acid that you need to help break down your food and absorb. So you're putting in a bunch of garbage food into a anti-garbage disposal because it's not getting broken down,
That's rotting.
and you have a thyroid situation.
Oof.
Oh, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, because thyroid, it's usually hypothyroid with that you're speaking of. It's like super common condition, unfortunately, that's often just medicated. And
That's just medicated.
it's just medicated. And I mean, that's good to, okay, you're diagnosed, you have low thyroid, you have Hashimoto's, which is the most common autoimmune condition in the US. And what if it is just salt? So, like, I have a similar situation. My mom had high blood pressure growing up, and so I learned not to salt my food.
Right?
We cooked almost everything from home, occasionally some canned goods, but it was a lot of home cooking. So salt was like a seasoning, not
Right.
an essential component. And by the way, it makes your vegetables taste way, way, way better. BT dubs. And
Right.
I got sick my first year of medical school, and my doctor was like, you make like 90% of your food at home. Are you salting it? And my partner at the time, he was like, dude, you don't eat enough salt. Like, you need to put more salt in your food. And I was like, nah, salt's not good for you. And my blood
Can we
pressure was,
cancel that culture, please?
yes, can we please cancel anti-salt culture? I am like
Cancel
such a
culture.
proponent of this. And now that I have data
Right.
and science to back me up, I'm like, salt, yes and no. Not all salt is created equal. The salt that has dextrose in it and like
Right.
cornstarch and the little like salt pouring over here, that's not the salt I prefer. That's been like super processed. And let's
Right.
get some good salt. And we can maybe talk about salt in another video, but
The
because
Himalayan salt, please.
yeah,
Yes.
we both are like passionate about it. We're like, this is a really good book. It's called The Salt Fix. Check it out. It's a short read. It's definitely
Yeah.
nerdy.
Can I geek out over salt? Yay!
It's just,
Yeah.
we're canceling the wrong things as far as our health goes. And it's sometimes hard for me not to think that there's something else bigger than what it seems like going on. And I try not to get too caught up in those things because they don't serve me. That's not benefiting me to get wound up in something like
Right.
that. But,
Hmm.
you know,
Well, and
I hate to
the
admit we got
thing,
it wrong.
right. Well, we didn't get it wrong. We were taught wrong. Now we're going to fix it. And one of the things that we also have learned this year is this whole new word of comorbidity
Comorbid.
and additional health risks that increase your risk for fill in the blank. I mean, because they are all related, they are all treatable, and they all have common denominators of natural and holistic healthcare.
Mhm. Totally.
Because you're not going to hear the words heal. We can manage, but you're not going to hear the words heal or reduce even. I don't know many medical practitioners that want to reduce the amount of pharmaceutical that is going into your body.
Mm.
There's always
Like
something.
to reduce them.
So you're on fill in the blank prescription for X amount of time, and now how's that working for you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I still, or no, it's more, or fill in the blank. Okay, well, let me give you something else that will help with this. So now you've got two.
Yeah.
And then it's an exponential increase of harm going into you. So
Yeah. Yeah. The condition that I remember the most learning in school about high blood pressure in relation to race is actually interesting because the anti-hypertensive medications that we use in the white population are not effective at treating hypertension in the black population. Okay, so why is that? And in my experience, the few African American individuals I did work with, all of them had hypertension, and all of them were taking 2 and 3 medications for hypertension, and none of them had it controlled. And I am treading very carefully here because I do know there's a fine line between blame and responsibility. And unfortunately, we live in a country that is rampant with racism. And I really think for at least the patients I saw that were on 3 medications to manage their hypertension, and it was not, and they were taking them as prescribed and blah, 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 is the underlying cause of like racism, chronic structural racism. And it's this word microaggressions has
Mm.
is new in my language within the last 5 years. And as a white person, I don't experience microaggressions because of my race, but I do as a woman. Um,
Sure.
and a good example of this is like I identify as being a entrepreneurial woman, and for whatever reason, now all of a sudden there are these guys on Facebook that are hitting me up and like expecting me to like, I don't know, but it feels creepy and wrong and yucky. And men don't experience this. I'm like 99% sure that men don't have to deal with like sorting through scum of like people on the internet trying to communicate with you. No, you're a pretty girl. Oh, you're also a business person. Interesting. Maybe whatever. Fill in the blank. I don't know.
Clearly, you need my help, is the message that I get.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Chronic, a chronic state of
Chronic.
clearly you need my help because you're a female businesswoman.
I
Female
just
businesswoman. How
cannot,
about
dude.
businesswoman? Yeah.
And let alone like if I was a black female businesswoman, um, how that would be impacting. And so I want to, we've talked about socioeconomic status, and unfortunately with comorbidities and socioeconomic status, Hispanic, Black, and Native American populations are being most affected by this virus, even in places which is, I don't understand how you could have a 3% population of African Americans and yet the death toll from COVID is 30%. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to wipe out an entire neighborhood.
That's right.
It's super scary. Like I had a really bad day a few weeks ago where I was like looking at the stats by race, and I was just appalled. It like hurts my heart so much. And I mean, the only thing I can continue to do is like have conversations and do better as a physician and make sure I catch things that don't judge someone, just straight away. Oh, this Black person, fill in the blank. Oh, this old whatever. I don't know. I'm just
Right. Well,
spinning.
there's a great book that's called Black Gene Lies,
Mm.
written by Dr. Wallach. And he discusses that the whole premise of nutrition
Mhm.
and food source and the method of cooking said food source and what that does to the body generationally, and nutrition and vitamin and mineral depletion
Mhm.
um, all works together. And then you add in the socioeconomic piece of it and the treatment. um, it absolutely goes together. He also has a program, Dr. Wallach does, and he is discussing the breakdown country by country
Mhm.
per death rate, and how the higher gluten eating countries are suffering the greatest from these immune viruses. That the villi that gets broken down because of overconsumption of gluten, and how that breaks it down and it wears away your immune system, because that's where your immune system, of course, is developed, is in the gut.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating the death toll differences based on diet.
Yeah.
So now we have new information. This is, and I don't even know that you would call it new information, as it is newly identified information,
Mhm.
and that's being brought out. That, of course, unfortunately, through deaths. I mean, death is a sad thing.
It
It
is.
is sad. I
Mhm.
still grieve over people that have passed on 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
There is no timeline on grief, and it can, hit you out of the blue suddenly there's a smell, suddenly you see something that you haven't seen since the last time you saw that, whatever it is. Grief is a natural part of living.
It is.
And
The human condition.
however, if we don't learn something through the death of fill in the blank, a lot more dies than just that one person.
Yeah.
I think we lose, I think the death of what hope brings people is one of the greatest losses if you don't learn from things.
Yeah. Yeah. I talked about the community and support. When my mom passed, the decision was she did not have a will. She did not plan anything. So I'm definitely all about advanced directives. I don't care how old or how young you are.
Right.
There's all, when it's your time, it's your time. And we children who were estranged from her primarily had to like make a decision on what she wanted, and that's tough. And then the decision that it was a majority vote since there were three kids. Like, what are we gonna do? Because she was sick. She was really sick and like multiple organ failure at that point. And with my background, I was like, well, I mean, yeah, maybe there's like an eensy chance that she's gonna come back, but probably not. So I
Mhm.
have a really good ability of like stepping back and being objective and like looking at things, um, and making those decisions without trying to be super emotionally clouded. Although I'm human, I do that too. And
Absolutely.
to see a family come together and respect and honor wishes rather than like make decisions based on high emotional tension areas,
Yeah.
um, that that's been really healing for me. I've learned like, wow, like look, it is possible to um, have these hard conversations and be okay with it. And if I have children, I'm definitely going to be talking to them about death, because this is not something I grew up talking about in my home. Maybe witnessed it, family pets, hamsters, lots of hamsters, unfortunately.
Birds in our house. Yes.
Birds, yeah, 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 the parakeets.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's just I think, yeah, and I've talked about the poetry bit, is like that makes me feel solace and makes me feel better, and knows that, I believe something is bigger than where we live now. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad that you are aware already about the conversations that really do need to happen with your family. And I know when I first started bringing up my passing that's going to happen with my kids, they were like, can we not talk about that? And I'm like, no, we need to talk about that, because you know what? I'm okay with it.
mhm,
And I think by your own self being okay with knowing that death is going to happen brings that anxiety down in your family too, you know. Um, the physical aspect, um, you know, that it's I've told my I've told my kids I want to be cremated. You are welcome to do with my ashes whatever you want to do. If you want to put it in a vial, if you want to put it in an urn, if you want to go toss them about, whatever it is you want to do, I am okay with that, because that's not me.
that's great.
You keep whatever it is of me that you want to keep, and I'm okay.
Mhm.
And I think letting people know that you are okay helps everybody else be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And one more poem, this time from
Yeah.
Rumi, the Book of Love. Um, the road home. So that's what I think about with death, is like getting to go home.
Mhm.
An ant hurries along a threshing floor with its wheat grain, moving between huge stacks of wheat, not knowing the abundance all around. It thinks its one grain is all there is to love. So we choose a tiny seed to be devoted to this body, one path, or one teacher. Look wider and farther. The essence of every human being can see, and what the essence eye takes in, the being becomes. Saturn, Solomon. The ocean pours through a jar, and you might say it swims inside the fish. This mystery gives peace to the longing and makes the road home home.
That's beautiful.
Oh, love Rumi.
Good deal. How do you spell that?
Rumi.
It is R-U-M-I. Okay.
Yeah, another poet from like, God, old. He's an old poet from the 1400s.
Wow. Okay.
It's just
I'll
so,
have to look him up.
yeah. He's the best-selling poet in the US.
Oh, wow. Okay. He's on the list.
Okay. Well, and maybe in the new year we get to touch on digestion. I was reviewing our videos and I was like, wow, there's like really good stuff. Not that I don't think our talks are good. It's just like, hey, like awesome.
Yes. Check it off. Check it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, next week, same time, same place.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye. Happy New Year.
Happy New